Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. Today, Bryce Simon and Andrew Claudio join. We're going to talk about the New York Knicks getting back in the winning column last night, but some of the questions still persist in New York. We're going to talk about Golden State losing Jimmy Butler for the rest of the season. I also want to talk about the Charles Bediako case at Alabama and why that one is a little bit different than some of the others. But first, let's hit the music.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Way downtown.
Bang! Bang! What is this going to be? Wow! Are you kidding me?
Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. But if you watch the tape, what you will see is completely orchestrated this game. Bryce, what's going on, buddy?
What's up, Sam? I was going to give my biggest Oscar 2026 nomination snub, but every website I tried to click on with their list had a paywall. So I will stick to I don't have a freaking clue what is going on and let you guys discuss that.
Yeah. Hey, Oscar nominations came out this morning, Andrew. Give me thoughts. Give me a couple thoughts real quick.
My number one movie of 2025 was Sinners. My number two movie of 2025 was One Battle After Another. That totaled 29 Oscar nominations, including 16 for Sinners, a Oscars record. So I woke up very happy today, even if some of the lower level snubs, of course, will be discussed. We've been talking offline and not on here a lot. I thought this is a good movie here, and I thought the Oscars weirdly recognized and reflected my thoughts and tastes, which I don't usually get, so I'll take it.
Yeah, really good. Like, really good movie year. Like, would I have nominated Frankenstein and F1 for Best Picture? Probably not. But like, I'm not gonna sit here really and parse when I think all of the other 8. I think I'm up to 130 2025 releases now, and I think that all of the other 8 are in my top 20. So like, I don't know. I'm pretty good with where we're sitting right now with the Oscars.
I stand for F1, so I was very okay with F1 getting a Best Picture now.
Yeah,
understanding it's the blockbuster representative, but I was very okay with that.
Yeah, honestly, I think I have F1 at like 25 or something. So like, I'm not even complaining that much about that one even. Yeah, no, like very few complaints right now. I think that it was good. I saw Marty Supreme yesterday, so like the fact that Daniel Lopatin's Score didn't get nominated is something that I was like, oh my God, what are we doing here? That like really hit me in a real way that was strange, but Score does weird stuff all the time. Like Challengers didn't get nominated last year either, and that was weird. But yeah, no, like very, very few complaints, honestly. And shout out Delroy. I think the thing I was happiest for was Delroy Lindo getting nominated for Sinners, because like he just should have an Oscar nomination. He should have won 5 years ago for Da 5 Bloods. So like I'm very, very happy for him as much as anything.
Marty Supreme has the guy that shows up to the Knicks games, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Yes. With the segue, Bryce Simon.
You're welcome.
That is true. But before we segue to the New York Knicks, we got to shout out the Substack. GameTheorySamV.substack.com. GameTheorySamV.substack.com. We have done a ton of stuff over there this week. We've had Caleb Wilson. We've had Cam Boozer breakdowns. We had another one that's slipping my mind earlier this week. We also had the NBA draft show that went live over on the Substack this week. The NBA draft show that we've been doing on the YouTube channel is just moving over to the Substack. Again, we kind of talked about that like for YouTube algorithmic reasons as much as anything. We immensely appreciate the incredibly like dedicated audience that show has. It just craters the metrics, unfortunately, on YouTube because there isn't enough interest in the NBA draft yet at this time of year. We want to do draft content though. If you guys want that, please go over to the Substack, GameTheorySamV.substack.com. If you subscribe there, you will get an NBA draft show every week. From Bryce and I. We'll be talking for like an hour on NBA draft stuff. So go over there and you'll also get player breakdowns. I'm doing Christian Anderson and Colin Murray-Boyles later, basically as soon as we finish recording this. So you'll get a bunch of player breakdowns. You'll get the Substack. You'll get the NBA draft show. Go to the Substack, GameTheorySamV.substack.com. But Before we get there, we are going to talk about the New York Knicks. And the New York Knickerbockers kind of rated the ship last night, like 120 to 66 was the final, right, Andrew?
Largest win in franchise history.
Yeah, just absolutely demolished and dump trucked the Brooklyn Nets, who I believe they were 2-0 against coming into that game this season. The first game I remember in my head was like a blowout, like they dropped like 140 or something, and it was just an absolute savage beating. But the second game was a little bit closer. This game ended up being an even more savage beating.
This was the 13th consecutive win that the Knicks have had over the Brooklyn Nets. For anybody keeping track at home, ever since Katie and Kyrie left, the Knicks have not lost to the Brooklyn Nets.
But prior to that, the Knicks had lost 4 in a row, 5 of their previous 6, and 8 of their last 10. I think things had gotten like pretty messy. They lose on MLK Day to the Dallas Mavericks. They lose to the Phoenix Suns 2 days prior to that. They lose to Golden State on the road on the 15th, and then they lose to Sacramento in what I would say was probably the ugliest one of the bunch of these 8 losses on the, I think that was the 14th. So just a very strange time in Knicks land, Andrew. So I will give you the floor. Give me your thoughts on the New York Knicks. How are you feeling? Because this is a team that when they won the NBA Cup, I said, even Bryce like kind of agreed, even though he's got a Pistons flag back there, that they were probably the favorite in the Eastern Conference.
I didn't kind of agree. Like I agreed. At that time, I said the Knicks were the favorites in the East at that time.
And it's funny because like I've roller coastered with them a lot this year. Because even at the beginning of the year, I was like, I still have a lot of questions about how this team with Karl Towns and Jalen Brunson defensively will do in the playoffs. And then I kind of was just like, oh, wait, am I thinking too much about the negatives? Am I thinking about what they can't do too much as opposed to what they can do? You know what I mean? Like this is still an incredibly powerful offensive team that has enough, wings and defensive players to be able to do some things. And now they lose 8 of these 10 games. And I'm like, well, okay, is this just like a run in the middle of the season where things get hard and, Jalen Brunson misses some time in this run as well, and we're overthinking this? Or do those structural flaws that I think existed at the beginning of the season actually exist and they are showing up in a concerning way?
So first of all, I want to thank you, Sam, for saying they lost 8 of their last 10, because you were leaving out New Year's Eve, which was also a loss. So they had lost 9 of their last 11, which gave us the 2-9 stretch, which I got to keep going back further to the NBA Cup. They win that game. I come on with you guys. I celebrate. Oh my gosh, the Knicks won the NBA Cup. This at that the NBA, shout out to my friends at Fanatics, the merch that was sent to us and we get to celebrate and wear, that the NBA wants us to celebrate but doesn't want to acknowledge in the standings. That had an effect. I thought that they maxed out, spent 10 days in Vegas, had to play a game like a championship style effort. And then if you really look closely at their schedule, there's like a buzzer beater or last second shot that Brunson hits in Indiana for a win. There's Christmas Day for everybody that watched it. Knicks were trailing that entire game for the majority of it by double figures. They come back, a spirited effort by Tyler Kolek down the stretch after Josh Hart gets injured. And the Knicks win by 2 against Cleveland. The next game, they eke out a win against Atlanta. The next game, they eke out a win against New Orleans. I might be mixing up the order there. Point is,
no, you're not.
These were not convincing victories that you're then going to look at and say, oh, so they've technically won 4 of 5 or whatever it was after the NBA Cup. But there was a cause for concern for how close things were. And you were just, okay, they're pulling out some clutch wins. Then they lose on New Year's Eve to the San Antonio Spurs in a rematch of the NBA Cup, the one on the schedule that actually counts. And then the sky started to fall a little bit as the margins of defeat got bigger and bigger and bigger. You alluded to the Sacramento game, which was the first real cause for concern that I had, not just because Brunson went out, which obviously colors some of the struggles that they've had, but the effort wasn't there. And this is where it's good that you and I finally get to talk about this, Bryce. There's a Detroit Pistons beatdown in there too, where they went up to Detroit, lost by 31. And the analysis that I gave after the game, because of the effort I saw the Knicks give in that game, was if they had lost by 11 and I saw the best version of the Knicks out there, I actually would have been more discouraged. But that was not the best version of the Knicks that I saw. Detroit, and this is from all the reporting from our colleagues at The Athletic, Sam, they got up for this game. They circled this game on the calendar. This is the first time they got to play the Knicks since that playoff series. They were looking forward to this pretty much since last April. And like that just happens on it. The Knicks had bigger fish to fry, that understanding that later in the season was the thing that mattered most. I say all of this because that type of effort is something that we had seen a lot of in New York over the past 3 weeks, that it's like, why aren't you guys trying? It's one thing to be bad. It's one thing to have those concerns you're talking about, Sam. I can't even get there with the X's and O's and the analysis if they stopped trying. Like this, that's the most frustrating part. The effort level against Sacramento, the effort level on Monday on MLK Day against Dallas, it was just non-existent, which is why last night it's a blowout win against a bad basketball team. Fine. They tried and it won by 54 points. And it's honestly the moment of encouragement from a Knicks standpoint that isn't X's and O's related, how good the offense looked, that they held the team to 66 points. It's that they showed up for a basketball game, which is not something that I think any Knicks fan, Knicks content creator, or NBA analyst could say about the Knicks over the past 3 weeks. So that's where I am with the team. Whether it's the worry of the last couple weeks that something might have broken in the locker room, but there very clearly seems to have been a thing that broke. That led to them not having this requisite level of effort to show up for basketball games. That's where I am with the team.
Yeah, well, there were like two things in Bryce's summarily departed for some reason here. Not sure what happened.
He'll be back.
But there were like a few things that stood out when I watched them. And it was that I thought that their transition defense was really bad in this run. Like I thought it was absolutely just catastrophically terrible in this run. Identifying players in transition, effort getting back in transition. I thought it was really, really bad. And I've gone through now and watched, I think, 9 of those 11 games in that like little 11 game run. The second thing was Towns. Like I want to be fair when I say this. His complaining on the court was not just like, a lot of the time Cat will complain and he'll gear it toward the officials. He'll gear it toward like everyone but his teammates. Right. And I thought that a lot of the complaining with Cat started to gear toward his teammates. Like there's a moment in the Phoenix game where he gets back screened by Devin Booker and Oso Ighodaro just like sprints to the rim and gets a layup because Cat gets back screened. And he just looks back like hands in the air at, I think it was who's guarding Booker. I think it might have been McHale. It might have been OG. I can't remember who it was off the top of my head. I think it was OG actually. And he just looks back at him like arms in the air, like gesticulating toward OG. Like, why didn't you call that out? Like kind of thing. And I don't know if he called it out and Cat didn't hear. And then he just kind of goes like this, whatever. And he just kind of like mopes, and his, overall body language, I think has just been really bad on the court over the course of this run. It's been really terrible. And you hear all of the reporting about Karl Anthony Towns, there being problems and things like that. And it's just like, well, honestly, like that's bearing itself out on the court is my biggest thing. Like I see that when I watch the Knicks play basketball, that's not just like this is happening behind the scenes thing that is clearly, bubbling in some way, shape, or form. Like it's happening when he plays,
right?
And it's like impacting the play. It feels like.
And to that point, the level of effort, the level of try is one part of it, but the dissension in the locker room and how, look, whatever is going on between Karl Anthony Towns and Mike Brown this season is clearly bleeding into their communication on the court as a roster, as a team. They are still starting the Josh Hart starting five, which was like, it won a bunch of games against some bad teams, and now we're playing it again, and it's plateaued again, even if I think Josh Hart has been outstanding this season. But the lack of communication, because these guys just don't seem to, when I say these guys, I mean the Knicks, like players, like the dissension in the locker room that you're sensing exists. It just bleeds into their on-court communication, which then leads to poor transition defense, which then leads to miscommunications of who's got who and who's screening who. And yeah, I think you got a bit of a climax of that on Monday against Dallas. Now, I still think they probably are the most talented Boston getting Tatum back aside team in the Eastern Conference. I respect the Detroit Pistons, but Bryce, this is where I want to, the conversation you and I had before the Pistons series last year, that there were a lot of Knicks fans and maybe a lot of national people saying the talent discrepancy is so large, the Knicks should wrap this up in 4 or 5. And I just said to you, this is going to be Knicks in 7, and it wouldn't shock me if they're upset, because you can punk this Knicks team rather easily. And it's way more of a Knicks question. For 2.5 months this year, Knicks weren't punked by anybody. They got through December, got through November. Something happened in like the halftime of the Spurs game on New Year's Eve that suddenly the team that could get very easily punked. And I know this isn't the most in-depth analysis. Like, Sam, I appreciate the actual basketball that you're analyzing. There's so much nonsense going on off the court and in that locker room that just, it's one of the things where you appreciated a Tom Thibodeau, that even if that nonsense existed, he was going to be at the Knicks facility, probably living there and working on film and working on tape and keeping the thing together. As I said, when Mike Brown was hired, I thought they explored a higher ceiling. That's what December was. I also thought you explored a lower floor when Mike Brown is your head coach. And that's what January's been. So that's where I'm at with that.
I think we love to celebrate the Pacers in the moment and talk about culture and chemistry and all of that stuff. And then we love to forget about it in moments like this. I've been thinking about this a lot because, not to turn it into this, but Detroit has a little bit of that right now. And Detroit may fizzle out in the first round. I have no idea what they're going to do. But right now, watching Detroit night in and night out, there is a level of chemistry and culture and toughness that a lot of people don't like to value and don't like to put into their analysis. And I think this is at the heart of my question to you guys. Like, I knew, like, GMAC, you watch these guys night in, night out. I've watched almost 20 full Knicks games, so I feel very good talking about him, but I know you guys have watched more leading into this one. And I was like, what questions can I ask to drive the conversation a little deeper? So my first one is, you talked about seeing what they did to the Nets, and you've referenced other scenarios where that happened. Guys, is that more worrisome or more confident building? Is it more worrisome that they can go through as many games as they did and get punked and get out physical and not prioritize it to the extent that they have? Or, and just like the mindset that you allow yourself for that to happen? Or are you going, you know what? It's an 82 game season. It's the middle of January. These things happen. And knowing that they can, quote unquote, flip the switch makes me feel okay about what's going to happen when all of the games matter in the postseason.
Yeah, like I'll take this first, Andrew. My immediate reaction to that, the effort thing will get fixed in the playoffs. Like they will play hard in the playoffs, right? And this is a team that is at no risk of missing the playoffs. So like, I'm not as worried about the effort thing. What I'm more worried about, and Andrew, you can agree or disagree with this. I'll be interested to hear your take. I know that everyone like pointed to the Sacramento game. That was definitely an effort game, right? Like that was we're out on the road in the middle of the season on a West Coast trip. Like we didn't bring it. Precious Achua like brought the energy. Dylan Cardwell brought the energy. And like just kind of punked like Cat, frankly, a little bit in that game. What I think was a bit more concerning was actually the Dallas game. And the reason why I thought the Dallas game was more concerning was the way that Dallas attacked them specifically. Like they just relentlessly attacked Brunson. Like it was repeated every single possession. Like they got Marshall switched onto him a couple of times and he was just able to drive through in a straight line. Then Brandon Williams attacked on him and like drove and missed like a little layup. Then Williams got him, locked on him in transition and got an easy bucket around three guys who just like didn't pick him up in transition. Right. Then the next possession they attacked him is the low man when he was in the opposite corner and just made him make a decision to tag or to go to the 3-point shooter. That was like a wide open shot. Like they had 21 points in the first 7 minutes of this game. It should have been so many more. Like it could have been 30 in the first 7 minutes of this game and it wouldn't have stunned me. They were just so intentional about getting Brunson in switches and getting him into disadvantageous help positions that when blended with the fact that Towns is also a very inattentive defender, low energy defender, let's go with. I think that the attention to detail waxes and wanes, but like low energy is probably the way to put it better, I would argue. It just is really hard for them because it's easy for teams to get them into rotation and get them scrambling. And like OG and Mikhail can do so much and can really cover ground. But when you have one guy who's too small and is getting repeatedly attacked, and you have another guy who's like pretty low energy and is not moving around outside the paint all the time, really. And then on top of it, when Mitch is in the game, I still think, and I said this earlier in the year, when they lost to Orlando in that game, where they weirdly like switched everything with Mitch.
Yeah.
I think that they switched too easily with Mitch still. Like they're way more comfortable with him on the perimeter against guards than I would be, maybe. The Phoenix game was like a great example of that. Like I think he got cooked on the perimeter by Booker a couple of times in that game. Like I don't have an identity for them on defense, I guess is my point. And I don't think they have an identity on defense yet. Like when Jalen Brunson, Karl Towns, Mikal Bridges, and OG Anunoby are on the court together, this team is still only a plus 3.2. And they're giving up 120 points per 100 possessions right now. Those are your four guys that you're paying a significant amount of money. That's what worries me more than anything. And I thought Dallas was like the best encapsulation of that. The way that it's a little bit too easy to attack them on defense right now, because I don't think they have an identity or a structure that they're repeatedly going to on defense.
Real quick, GMAC, and then I think you can touch on both, because that led right into my other question. We all love to crush Towns, and we love to crush Jalen Brunson's defense. And so what I was thinking was, when this team was put together, was the idea not that this trio of wings would be so good two ways that they would overcome it? And so is there any sort of blame that should go to the trio of OG, Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart in some capacity?
So for the last month in particular, not Josh Hart, he just came back from injury this past weekend. So he went down on Christmas, came back last Saturday. And then when they came back from that road trip, he missed the first game against Phoenix, which then he showed up. He actually was vocal about this upcoming game against Dallas, I think we need me out there. I need to try and get out there. He did not look 100%, and the team did not look 100%. I don't answer your question with this question facetiously, Sam. Were you talking about this season or last season?
In regard to what?
Like the Brunson Cat questions and the wings. Like, are you asking about this season or last season? It's more a rhetorical question because these are the same issues they had last year too. They didn't have a defensive identity. They played a ton of drop coverage. Tibbs never played zone. And it was just, I'm going to play the most bare minimum defense, hope we score enough points, and hope Jalen Brunson saves us in crunch time.
Yeah.
And then,
you know what though, Andrew? Like,
what's up?
They kind of, I thought, fixed that by the end of the season going into the playoffs. Like, I thought they were getting better at figuring out how to play with one another and how to and again, it could just be that Towns really ratcheted up the effort in the playoffs. Like, Towns was not as bad in the playoffs defensively as he was throughout the season. And maybe that is the fix, to be honest, is just Towns ratcheting up the effort and becoming less immobile on defense. And once that happens, these things get fixed. But I felt like it got a little bit better throughout that later portion of last year. And I hope that momentum would lead into this season, I guess.
So 2 things. That part where it got a little better, Jalen Brunson hurt his ankle at the beginning of March last year, a game against the Lakers that went into overtime. The Knicks then played the next month like a Tibbs team. They had one poor defender on the floor. Either Deuce McBride or DeLon Wright was your point guard. And to the point about Deuce McBride, that I know anybody on Game Theory that's heard me say this, that continues to be my agenda, I guess. He gives them a point of attack defender, right?
Can I just a little bit push back? I don't think Deuce has been as good defensively this year as what he's been previously. Against Dallas particularly, I thought he got hit pretty hard. Actually.
I think everybody got cooked against Dallas. So that's why I wouldn't fully use that one. But go ahead, continue.
But if you look at their lineup data with the starting lineup, Brunson, Town, Bridges, Anunoby, they're giving up 133 points per 100 when those 5 guys play together. I love Deuce. Deuce is I have loved Deuce. Deuce is a top 20 guy in that class or so. I have long been the biggest Deuce McBride guy, and I think he is an awesome player, and I'm a huge fan. I think he's been slightly worse this season defensively than what he has been previously.
I think he's a little bit smaller than, I think he is a smaller guard. So at the point of attack, at times he can get exposed. I still think he's their best point of attack defender, which then allows your wing stop to be wings. They can actually be the things on the outside of the point of attack, which is what the issue was last season, that Josh Hart couldn't be a point of attack defender and was hunting for rebounds. So he was never that great off ball. The point I'm getting to with last season is it's hard for me to really judge any chemistry or identity they developed on defense with Brunson and Cat on the floor, because for a month they didn't have Brunson on the floor. And then when Brunson came back, it was right before the Pistons series, when the Pistons were able to make that a series because of their physicality and their defense. The Knicks were able to win that series because they were able to score more points at the end of the day. Then, shocking discovery, they could switch. And they switched everything against the Celtics. And it was a mind-blowing thing. Oh my gosh, Tibbs waited all year to switch up the defensive coverages. And then they played the Pacers after upsetting the Celtics. And we saw all the same issues that we saw for the 82-game sample, especially the transition defense that Indiana exposed like crazy, which it's why it's frustrating from a Tibbs standpoint that it's you had the fix right there to go somewhat small and get Deuce in the starting 5, but your pivot was to switch up the starting 5 and put Mitch out there. And you just talked about how Mitch is in space, in guarding transition, in guarding guards, which when the Knicks switched this year, what you're seeing is Mitch doesn't have the lateral quickness as he used to, multiple ankle surgeries later, to guard a bigger wing, a smaller guard, you name it. He is a drop big and one of the best offensive rebounders in the league. That's where I am with Mitch at this point in his career. All this to say, the original question I asked you about, is this year or last year? we're talking about the structural flaw of this team. They have two poor defenders. The hope with Mike Brown was you were going to make the offense so gangbusters that it was going to be able to offset some of the bad defensive moments. And we saw it in January. This team went 2.5 months without losing back-to-back games. They were 23-9. And then it all came crashing for the last 11 games, at least. Some injuries involved, don't get me wrong, but you're seeing the floor, that those issues when the shots aren't falling make it hard for them to get consistent stops. And I just think it's going to be the structural flaw of this team coming playoff time too, which is why you're going to have to hope, if you're a Knicks fan, if you're projecting high for the Knicks, that you get some favorable matchups. And that, just to be simple about it, that the talent wins out. Because I do still think this is the more talented team than just about any team they'll see in the East, barring a return of Jason Tatum. And that's not disrespectful to Detroit, Bryce. I still think Detroit
or a trade from the Pistons, right?
Right. Like, so Pistons get Trey Murphy. I love that idea that you talked about, or a Michael Porter Jr. It gives another option that the Knicks have to worry about on defense that, like you said, could target Brunson. I still think the Knicks, I picked the Knicks to win in 7 last year, so I wasn't that confident last year that the Knicks were that much better than the Pistons. I would still pick the Knicks to win that series, though. But yeah, this is who they are. They are a structurally flawed team with a very high ceiling, but I also think a very low floor.
Yeah. All I would say, I think Detroit is a better team on January 22nd, while still acknowledging that the Knicks may be the more talented team. And before I don't know what other stuff we want to get into. I also want to ask about the depth, because we went through the Tyler Kolek couple weeks of, Tyler Kolek,
where I was going to go.
Yeah. Like, okay, well, those minutes have dwindled and impact has dwindled a little bit. And then now it looks like maybe Landry Shamet is coming back into the mix. So I guess I do have a little bit of curiosity of where are we at on the depth now, Sam, in terms of who do we believe in? Who do we not? Who do they believe in and who do they not?
I mean, I think that Mike Brown clearly believes in Shamet, for one. I think that he wants to play Shamet. The numbers are good with Shamet on the court. I don't really have a huge beef with that so far, I guess. He's been good so far. I think that, again, he's just quite small, and it's going to be harder to deal with that in the playoffs. He's been better defensively than what he has been previously. I think it'd be reasonable to say that. Kolek is, again, just small, but again, they've been very good with Kolek on the court by and large. Will that continue? We'll see, right? Yabusele is the one that just kind of has to move on, and they're going to have to figure out a way to use his salary in a deal at some point to trade him. They have 7 guys that I really trust. Maybe 8, but it's 7 realistically. It's Brunson, it's Anunoby, it's Towns, it's Mitch, it's McHale, it's Deuce McBride, it's Josh Hart. Right? That 7 can get you a long way. What I would ask you guys is, I think they have to do something here on the trade market. They're not moving Cat. That would blow my mind, to be honest with me, or to be honest with you guys. I think that would, I don't see that happening. Is there a specific thing that you want, Andrew? Because my idea was Jeremy Sohan, because I want another flexible, versatile defender, and let's go pair Yabusele back with Wemby and see if that can turn him around a little bit. Maybe they get Dadier in addition to that, just kind of something like that for Sohan, right? Not to say Dadier is good, but it's at least an interesting flyer to take, because he was always a project, right? I've seen people bring up Sadiq Bey as a name, just for more positional size. I've seen people bring up Jose Alvarado.
Are you trade 2 first-round picks? You think Troy Weaver's trading Sadiq Bey away again, Sam? There's no way that Troy Weaver is making that mistake twice in 5 years.
Oh my God. I would say
the popular one. You just said Jose Alvarado. The popular one among the Knicks beat right now is Alvarado and Misi from
Yeah,
from New
people
Orleans.
keep bringing up Eve Missy, and I get I like Missy as a flyer for somebody for sure, but I think that I love him for the Pacers. Like that'd be great because he would still get this year to continue developing. Like he's still not awesome on defense is the issue, and I don't know yet how playable he would be in a playoff series. Like I think people just look and see, oh, like 6'10", 7'2" wingspan, monster athlete. He's still growing into his game on defense, like in a real way. If I was a contender, I don't know that would be the guy that I was looking for. Like the Pacers would have this year to really let him develop, all of next year to be able to figure it out. And then maybe by the time he's in the playoffs next year, he might be okay, right? The Knicks or somebody like that, they need him this year if they're going to acquire him. And that kind of timeline for Missy would worry me a little bit.
Real quick, GMAC, does Missy end up in the playoff rotation if Mitch is healthy anyway? And then, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then that's why
my question is would this be putting the club in the bag for Mike Brown to always play a center with Cat, which I also don't love the idea of.
Yeah. It's Mitchell Robinson insurance. This is a guy with multiple surgeries that hasn't always played in the playoffs when they've existed. He's been hurt to end. He's had playoff injuries in the past. And with respect to Ariel Hukporti, I also don't trust him as a third center. So it's a third center that you can take a flyer on. And
I love Ariel, but yeah, I wouldn't.
Right. So it's somewhat of a flyer that you can invest as a third center because Mitchell Robinson isn't playing back-to-backs. He's also on the funniest minutes restriction that every Knicks fan has ever seen after 5 years of Tom Thibodeau. Now we're only they are sitting there with a stopwatch with Mitchell Robinson, and it's all right, 18, you're out of here. It's insurance. It's when he's taking a day off, can we have Missy be the upgrade over Hukporti? Because we do need to get there's 82 game depth and there's 16 game depth or whatever, playoff depth, which I think that's where Alvarado comes in to play.
Here'd be my last question on the center thing, at least. If they were to get a Missy or somebody like that, there's no way that then they look to turn and move Mitch, we think. Right?
I thought about it because of the history of Leon Rose with expiring contracts. The only player that he's allowed to get to free agency that was a expiring contract was Mitchell Robinson the first time. And I guess technically Isaiah Hartenstein, but the Knicks were competing that year and thought they had a good chance to retain Isaiah Hartenstein. The fact that Mitch is an expiring contract, I've thought about that all season, Sam. When you see him on the court, you want to talk about a thing the Knicks are very good at? Go look at their offensive rebound percentage in every lineup that they're in. He's on a Steven Adams type of track when he's on the court with the rebounds. Their possession battle that they continue to win is part of their. You want to talk about them having an identity? It's that. So I don't know. I think that's just the ceiling is higher. You talk about a contender needing that. I don't know what you're trading Mitchell Robinson for that lets you to still have that ceiling against backup units,
That's my opinion good. My actual opinion for what it's worth in terms of what I think. I don't think they can get a bigger difference maker than Mitch for Mitch's expiring deal. But yeah, I just at least wanted to throw it out there because of the history.
Fair.
What about someone like Jalen Smith with the Bulls?
Sure. Great.
What are you the difference? Splits the difference a little bit. I don't know. How many second round picks do the Knicks have?
They have a couple. They have enough to make a trade like that. The one that got offered to me was Yabusele for Nick Richards. And Nick Richards, it's insurance. I would rather have somebody that's going to enter the rotation, which is why the Alvarado comp keeps coming up. If Kolek's not the backup point guard anymore, and as of Monday, if Jordan Clarkson is also not in the rotation, it's the 7 you guys talked about. It's, I guess, Shamet. That's his full name. I guess Landry Shamet. And then you need a 9th guy and probably another ball handler that you can play with Jalen Brunson. So that's where Alvarado comes into play. I'd be fine with it, but look, this goes back to the 7 that you're talking about. They have a 7. Whatever they get from the cluster of everybody else is somewhat bonus points. I in a playoff rotation, I'm actually okay with their 7, and then you piece together just for water breaks and depth for the playoffs, whatever you get for the 8 minutes that those 7 are not playing, or 10 minutes those 7 are not playing in a playoff scenario.
The thing that none of the depth, the reason that I liked Sohan best was that none of the depth guys are super high end defenders who are like multi-positional and athletic and big, right? Like Josh Hart, is multi-positional, but is messy on defense. Like he's a good point of attack defender and is physical and certainly cleans up the defensive glass. Like he brings positive attributes on defense. It's just like a little bit messy from time to time. And he's smaller is the other issue. Like he's just not a big human being by NBA standards at the very least. Right. So I like the idea of going and getting like a bigger body on the wing, which is why I like Sadiq Bey, like kind of tracked for me a little bit. Yeah. Would help with the shooting, but he's obviously not a great defender either, just in terms of mobility. And I'd be worried about putting him out there with Cat. There just aren't like a crazy number of names, I guess is my thing for the Knicks that like really fully track, because they're just so small. If you go get Alvarado is my issue. Like I don't think that I feel great about playing Alvarado with Brunson, and you're going to play Brunson 40 minutes in the playoffs anyway, or 38 minutes or whatever. So you're getting Alvarado for like 8 minutes probably in the playoffs.
Aren't those margins? But like, that's what we're talking about here. They have 7, so they need somebody to go get somebody to play 8 minutes. And we thought that could be Kolek. Like that's what the NBA Cup revealed. Do they have something in Kolek? And for 3 weeks, a lot of us thought they might. The league might have caught up to him in his sophomore season, and maybe that's where Alvarado comes into play. We just need him to be the guy that it's what Campaign was a lot last year. The guy that is the point guard when Cat is out there, so that way it's not just running the offense. Because with respect to Deuce McBride, he's not a point guard. You need somebody that can actually run an offense with Cat out there and prioritize him. Is what we've been looking at in the film at Knicks Film School. So I'm actually not Yabusele all 8 minutes. You have to survive the minutes that he's played.
He can't play in the playoffs.
So I don't think like he can barely play regular season at this point, Sam. Yeah. So I'm at the point where if you can get a guy that can give you 8 to 10 minutes come playoff time, those are the margins in the playoffs that can decide a playoff game here or two.
And look, here's the other thing too. Like there are 2 reasons for Alvarado beyond this, right? So like, because your points are right, and I don't want to take that away, but like, Alvarado is a plus, defender on the ball, which would really help in the way that you're saying. Also, like the New York fan base would adore him.
Local. Yeah.
Like genuinely would adore him. And they would go crazy every time he does one of those Grand Theft Alvarado things, to the way that like it could genuinely like swing a playoff game by getting the like fan base and like the energy in Madison Square Garden, up again, if they're going through like a bit of a dead spot, right? Not to say that Madison Square Garden in the playoffs is ever in the middle of a dead spot, but like, if the energy is down for like a minute, right? Bringing him in could give you like that boost in a way. So I do get it. Like I get that side of it. It's just a little bit, the size part is tricky for me with them, because they're already quite small with a lot of the depth guys that they have and a lot of the depth options.
Last thing I'll say, I don't think there's any margin move you're going to make at this deadline that suddenly the Knicks will become a competent defense. This is just the structural flaw to their team. We could talk in the offseason if there is, like, Karl Anthony Towns is going to be due for an extension that I don't think the Knicks are going to give him. And no, I don't think the Knicks are getting Giannis. So maybe there's a different conversation about where they decide to go with the next iteration of the team. They'll have a first round pick become available this offseason because the Mikal Bridges picks obviously set them back in some way. But I think this is just what you have to deal with. Team that has a high offensive ceiling because of the internal flaws to how this team was put together. You're going to have nights where they can't stop a nosebleed and they're not scoring enough points to, clean up the mess. So I just think this is what the Knicks are. And it could mean they make the finals this year. It could also mean they lose in the first round. This is who they are.
Yeah. I was going to say, my last question for you, Andrew, and for you, Bryce, is where do the Knicks sit in the Eastern Conference right now?
I think they're the third best team in the East. I would say second, but I think Jason Tatum's coming back. So I'm just putting the Celtics ahead of the Knicks, if with the caveat that, like, if Tatum comes back and it's very clear he's not like they rushed him back in some way, like there's that wild card of Tatum. So second or third with the Celtics and all the mystery surrounding them is my question. I concede, Detroit, you are the number one team in the regular season of the Eastern Conference. We'll see what happens come April, May, and June.
Yeah. So I guess if I interpreted this question of the playoffs start tomorrow and where these teams are at and how I feel about them before the deadline, before Tatum gets back, anything like that, I would have to go with where Detroit is at right now and what they've done and how they're playing. I think I would still go New York over Boston in a playoff series right now, just because, like, I struggle to, as good as Kata has been, and he has been good, and I struggle a little bit with Boston. So I guess I would have New York second, but to your point, this isn't me taking Tatum into play. If you're telling me that, like, Tatum's into play, 3 months from now, that's different, right? And I got to see what the deadline brings for the Pistons and stuff like that. So, I think the point here is Detroit has flaws that I can immediately point out. Boston right now has flaws that we can immediately point out. The Raptors is probably a team we need to start talking about more because they just continue to win games and they're a top 6 team in the East.
And it seems like they're going to try and buy.
And they're going to be buyers. So this conversation is going to be a lot of fun in about a month whenever the deadline is cleared and we see how all of this stuff actually looks. So I think I would pick Detroit right now if the playoffs started tomorrow. I think I would still have the Knicks over the Celtics, with all due respect to how awesome Jaylen Brown and the Celtics have been up to this point in the season.
Yeah, as a person that even said after the Detroit series last year that I thought if Isaiah Stewart played, that Detroit would have won that series, honestly. I am going to take Detroit still. I think that if they are healthy and if they're able to go get one more, I want a ball handler there more than I want like a big wing scorer that everyone seems to want there in Detroit. If they're able to just go get like a cheap ball handler in some way who can create second unit offense for them and can play next to Cade as well, I would feel really good about Detroit. Like I would feel quite good about the Pistons at that point. Okay. Andrew, do you want to sign off or do you want to continue on with us?
I unfortunately have to peace out, but it's always good to catch up with you fellows. Bryce, I'll let you know how the Oscars go this year. I'm sure Sam might let you know as well. And check out Knicks Film School and all of our content there as we watch the Knicks hopefully turn things around. Last thought here, and I never thought I'd be the person to say this. There's another wild card team that I may or may not have invested some hard-earned capital on a feature. Watch out for the Philadelphia 76ers. I cannot believe I'm the one saying this, but I am just very impressed what Maxey has been this season, what the two-man game that he's developed with Edgecombe. And if Embiid is now your third option and then Paul George is now your fourth option, again, this is me talking about. I root for that city to lose every single day, and it's been great to watch them cry that the Mets got Bo Bichette over the past 48 hours. I'm genuinely concerned as a Knicks fan and as a person in the Eastern Conference of the Philadelphia 76ers. So that's the other little nugget I'll throw out there before I go.
Congrats on Lubob. Congrats on Freddie Peralta. Congrats on Bo Bichette, Andrew, across the board. All of the things that I wish the Pirates had done or had the money to be able to invest in.
Thank you.
Get out of here. We will talk to you soon. Bryce, before we move on, we're going to shout out our good friends over at Mizzen Main. Let's be honest, most dress clothes are very uncomfortable. They can be high maintenance. They just don't feel great to wear. You spend too much time ironing them, dry cleaning them. You can tug at these like stiff fabrics. That's why Mizzen Main is just the best. Mizzen Main makes classic menswear with performance fabrics, so it's effortless to look sharp and feel great. Mizzen Main actually invented the performance fabric dress shirt over 10 years ago, and since then they've perfected it with modern fabrics. The shirts and pants look refined, but they're stretchy, lightweight, moisture wicking, wrinkle resistant, and completely machine washable. There's no ironing or dry cleaning required. When you put the clothes on, you're just going to feel an instant difference. Professional style that's actually comfortable, whether you're in the office, on the road, or even on the golf course, which tends to be where I will wear Mizzen and Main. Right now, Mizzen and Main is offering our listeners 20% off your first purchase at mizzenandmain.com. Promo code GAME20. That's Mizzen, spelled Mizzen, and Main, MAIN.com. Promo code GAME20 for 20% off. Mizzenandmain.com, promo code GAME20. And if you'd rather shop in person, you can find Mizzen and Main stores in select states. Okay, Bryce, our second topic today, probably the biggest news that has occurred in the NBA this week. Jimmy Butler has torn his ACL. He was going up for a pass from Brandon Pajemski and landed awkwardly on his right leg. He immediately went down. It was non-contact. It felt pretty bad from the moment that it happened. Unfortunately, their fears were realized before the sun came up even. And it was reported by Sam Amick, by Shams, by everybody, Nick Friedel, Anthony Slater, that it was a torn ACL, unfortunately. So the Warriors now are in a tricky position, I think, when it comes to the deadline, because everybody thought that, okay, we're just going to invest in these three guys, Jimmy, Dre, and Steph. We're going to move Kuminga for help, and we're going to go from there. They play, I believe, later tonight at Dallas. Their first game without Jimmy, they lost by 18 to Toronto, where they gave up 145 points, and it was over by the third quarter. I know that Jonathan Kuminga's agent, wants to hype up Kuminga's third quarter and everything, but they were down 30 by the time that happened. What do the Warriors do now, Bryce? Because I honestly don't know.
I don't know. I've been thinking about this. My mind, I'll be intrusive thoughts. My very first thought was, is it actually time for them to consider something with Steph Curry? Is the right way to do this to say things are over here and let him go? Because Steph still has something left, right? I just don't know if I don't know that they have the avenue to get it done in Golden State. You were higher on them than me up to this point, and maybe rightfully so.
That's dead at this point for me, for what it's worth.
No, for sure. But to your point, they were 11th in offensive rating, 10th in defensive rating up until this happened, 9th in net in the NBA. I already thought they didn't have enough, I guess was my point. I already thought that they needed some more scoring punch. They needed some more stuff here, along with potentially a big. And maybe they were going to be able to thread the needle with the Kuminga deal to go get both or at least one. And maybe I'd end up excited about it. Now that there's no chance. Steph is already age 37 season. Draymond's age 35 season. Those guys are just getting older, obviously. I don't know how excited you are about the young talent. There's some interesting guys, Pods is interesting. Moody's turned into a decent 3-and-D player. All that. I truly found myself going is this the final straw that says hey, but I don't think they will. So then
they're not going to.
They're not going to do that.
Yeah.
So then it was, okay, what do they do with Kuminga now? Do you play that? Do you still play that chip at the deadline? Or do you insert him into this role and let him go crazy for the second half of the season and just hold on to him and then play that chip in the offseason when you have a club option so you can keep him around? And now it's a $24.3 million expiring deal in the offseason. And I kind of wonder, why move him now, Sam? What's the point? He's going to make you more competitive for the rest of the season based on the rest of your roster, right?
So, yeah, I have a few thoughts on that. I just want to note, the numbers here with and without Jimmy before I move into like the Kuminga thing, because that's a whole conversation. With Jimmy on the court this season, they're a plus 8.5. Without him on the court, they are a -1 per 100 possessions. With Jimmy and Steph, they're a plus 6.8 on the court per 100 possessions. Jimmy without Steph this season is a plus 10.3 per 100 possessions. I think that's schedule based if memory serves. And then Curry without Jimmy on the court, they lose by a 1.2 per 100. Stephen Curry, Draymond Green, and Jimmy Butler together, plus 7.7 per 100 possessions. Jimmy without the other two, plus 16 per 100 possessions. Again, small sample size, I believe schedule based. Curry and Green without Jimmy on the court, only a plus 2.8. Only Curry on the court, minus 5.8. Only Green on the court, minus 23.3. Curry, Green, Moses Moody, no Jimmy Butler, minus 2.7. And just for reference, like Jimmy, Curry, Moody without Draymond was a plus 13.4. So Jimmy was like the centerpiece of a lot of these lineups that were super successful because he was the two-way wing that they desperately needed to glue it all together, who could create a shot and then go guard his position, right? Now they don't have anybody who can do both of those things. Like Moses Moody can knock down threes and can guard his position, but he doesn't create a shot, and they need a secondary guy who can create a shot. Jonathan Kuminga, for all of his flaws, can create a shot, but just doesn't guard at an effective enough level, right? So,
and can create a shot in his way, not necessarily the Golden State Warrior way.
Yeah, absolutely true. So, my answer to your question on Kuminga is, okay, I like your idea of playing him through the rest of the year and just letting him go crazy and trying to elevate his trade value. I think that's an interesting idea. You damn well better be on the same exact page with Steve Kerr on this. And he better agree to play him 25 to 30 minutes a night if you're doing that.
Oh, yeah. You mean the front office and Steve Kerr?
Yes.
Correct.
If you're keeping Kuminga past the deadline,
Kerr has to promise that he'll play him no matter what.
Yes.
Not no matter what. Within reason.
Otherwise, you have to move him now.
I agree with this.
Like, if there is not a real agreement from Steve Kerr, because think about this, like Steve Kerr took him out of the rotation like in December. He had 1 month left. Like if he played him and it was going well, Kuminga's gone. Like, think about how frustrated Steve Kerr had to be with that, right?
Yeah. No, this is fair. This is true.
So if you're not going to play, if like there's any chance that Kerr is going to be like, oh, Kuminga gave me like a terrible defensive effort in this game, I can't play him come March 3rd, I think you have to move him now still. I do. Because otherwise you're not maximizing his value at the end of the day as a trade chip. And look, like I've seen people bring up like DeRozan is an idea for them, for Kuminga. Doesn't bother me that much, honestly. I would want to get something else with DeRozan for Kuminga. Like I would want it to be like DeRozan and something else. But if you can get that something else, then it's somewhat like if you can get Devin Carter, it doesn't even have to be like a massive thing. If you could just do DeRozan and Devin Carter for Kuminga, like I'm basically for that. you'd have to add something back from Golden State. But like, I'm salary wise, I mean, not value wise. Like, I'm fine with that at that point, I think. But you really have to be on the same page with Steve Kerr, is my opinion on this. If you're not, then it becomes a real difficult issue.
Well, here's the other thing I think you have to be the same page on is, do we think we have one more go? Like that was my original thought. Like, I realize they're not trading Stephen Curry. As I admit, that was an intrusive thought that I know isn't realistic. But I do think that they're a team that has to ask themselves, okay, do we think Jimmy Butler can be back in 12 months? And if so, then are we making a Jonathan Kuminga trade that is conducive to helping us win next year? We know this year is gone. We're not making a move that's going to help us win this year. We have our own draft pick, which is kind of interesting. So we have a first round pick that we're either going to draft a player that, maybe can come in and help us, or we can move it or whatever. So are we moving Kuminga for DeMar DeRozan, who's under contract, for next year as well to help us? Or do we not think that Jimmy Butler is going to be able to come back? And like, do we not think that next year even is a 1 year window? Because then I think that changes who you trade for. Because then I am at least trying to get, as you mentioned, the Devin Carter or some other, insert young player X that can be a part of this whenever this all, like, I don't know how this lasts past 2027, Sam. Like, it's, like, I don't see any way. So are we going to go for it for one more year? Or are we like, hey, this is actually already done. We don't even think next year. We got to, we're going to do our best to be competitive as Curry, out of respect to Curry and Draymond. But really, we're kind of making moves more. We're not trying to split the timeline. We're kind of focusing more on the longer term timeline here while still being somewhat competitive. I think that's a question they have to answer as well. Not to us, but to themselves.
I think that's true. I mean, look, everything that they have done since, Curry has been there has been to try and compete while they have Steph and then figure out the future in the future, while still like building for that future at the same time. Right. Having Kuminga and James Wiseman and Moses Moody and all those guys, like, continuing to be quote unquote light years ahead or whatever of where they are. But you kind of, look, if I was them, it's hard.
Would you go for it one more year? That's my question to you, Sam. So let's just say, like, I don't know who the trade is.
What does go for it mean?
So you make a win over the next 18 months trade with Jonathan Kuminga and whatever else, like whatever it is. Okay. You make.
I'm not giving up any of my future facing picks now, is what I would tell you.
Okay.
Like, I'm not giving up the 2026 pick now because I might be able to like really get this to be a lottery pick now.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. So could you not talk yourself into Jimmy comes back in 12 months? We get Draymond and Steph, whoever else is still on the roster. Let's just say that pick ends up in the lottery and you bring in, I don't know, whoever, Cam Carr or Keaton Wagler, or I don't know, maybe some Yaxel Lindeborg if you want an older player, whatever. I mean, Cameron Carr's 3 years. Yeah, let's say Yaxel. Does the idea of bringing in Yaxel in the draft, Jimmy is going to be back in 12 months, one last go from Steph and Draymond. Is there a trade then, whether, is that DeRozan? Is it somebody else with Kuminga that makes you feel like, hey, we can go for it next year one more time? We got one more year to go at it with that pick and that trade.
The problem with DeRozan, the more I think about it, is like that would be like purely for the season. You know what I mean? Like,
so that's my question.
Yeah. Like, DeRozan doesn't work with Jimmy at all next year. So it comes down to like, how do you think a 37-year-old Jimmy Butler is going to look next year, Price? And
correct,
coming off of an ACL, like, I respect the hell out of Jimmy. I have long thought that dude has been so underrated and has been one of the 10 best, 5 best players in the league, like 6 or 7 best, maybe not 5 best, but like 6 or 7 best players in the league. You know, when he was playing in Miami and everything. And I know that he was only playing 55 games and everything, but when he was healthy, I mean, he was just unconscionably good. I don't know how I feel about a 37-year-old Jimmy Butler coming off of an ACL. Like, that feels very difficult to buy into when I think Draymond Green has been awesome on defense this year. Like, he's been genuinely fantastic on that end. The offense is starting to really feel like it's being a problem the last 2 years. And not a problem because he still has all of the synergy in the world with Stephen Curry and everything, but it's not great either. He can't really do anything on his own if he's not in like synergistic circumstances with Curry.
So then what do you do? So then it's all for the future. You draft the young with that first round pick. You don't worry about, you don't feel like you want to go after Yaxel Lindeborg because of his age and he can help you right now. You draft the younger project, and for Kuminga, you make a trade for a not DeMar. You make a trade for the opposite of DeMar DeRozan, a younger player who, maybe you can come in and eventually will stay here for you'll re-up, right? You'll sign to a longer term contract that'll be here past their rookie scale deal or something like that.
I think I actually am on the idea of like, I would probably want to play the next 6 months as like a 2 timeline situation until I know what Jimmy's knee is. And like, I know what Jimmy looks like coming back from the knee injury. And look, like there's a real case here with Golden State too, that, you hang on to Jimmy for right now, because if you do it that way, then by the time next season rolls around, right, Jimmy would be an expiring $56 million contract, right? And even if he's not totally healthy, you might be able to turn and move the Jimmy deal for some star if you want to, right? Honestly, if I was them, like it seems like they're not considering that, is why I'm not talking about moving Jimmy. But if there was a team that wanted to just get off of money, as opposed to the Mavericks, like with Anthony Davis, where it feels like they want assets for Anthony Davis, right? It feels like they want stuff to move him. Like, there's just a big money guy out there that a team is just willing to move for like minimal asset value on top of Jimmy. I would probably look that route now, because, or at least in the off season, maybe not right now. I wouldn't look to do this right now. In the off season, I might look to do the expiring deal of Jimmy Butler for a guy that has like a little bit more money left over that, it isn't expiring. Right.
So I was trying to come up with a name. Paul George came to mind, but I don't know. Like, Sabonis only has 1 more year.
Like, if Portland was willing to give you assets in order to take both Jeremy Grant and Drew Holiday and like completely clear their books moving forward as they move into like this Denny, Scoot, Kamara, everything era, Shaden Sharp, etc., because they will need money if they want to renegotiate and extend Denny upward. Like, if they were willing to give you assets to do both of those guys for Jimmy, that's somewhat interesting to me. At that
point. With the idea that you're acquiring assets, know that you're not really making a move to compete, but you're at least staying somewhat competitive for the final year of Curry.
Yeah, like I think that Drew is still pretty good at basketball and is an amazing fit with Curry. And Grant has some offensive juice, even though the defense is a bit scattershot and messy. Like, but again, like I would need Portland to incentivize me to take back that money, though, because those are 2 of the worst like deals in the NBA. Is like that's what teams around the league think.
But we're not picking the Warriors to be a top 4 team, not top 6 team if they enter next year with Steph Curry, Drew Holiday, Jeremy Grant, and Draymond Green. And then the rest of the roster kind of filled out with the names that we've seen. Maybe top 6. Like maybe we're like, hey, they could be sneaky, but they're not Oklahoma City. They're not Denver. They're not Minnesota. They're not Houston. They're not San Antonio.
Yeah, I think it would be very difficult. I think it's going to be very difficult for them to overcome this here moving forward. They're going to need to find a way to go get like assets. Like again, to me, the cleanest way to do this is to go get assets with the Jimmy Butler thing, with the Jimmy Butler expiring deal.
So to me, the pathway that you continue to reference then is let's make the final whatever of Steph Curry and Draymond Green competitive, but we're not actually making real moves to go all in and win a title. And to be clear, like I'm okay with that. I'm curious which, because I think there's multiple. It's like we're going fully young. We're going, hey, we're going to go make one more run at this next season, or this is the pathway of we're not going to make this roster unbearable. Because that team is a play-in team in the West, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, it's a first round
playoff.
You add a first round pick. You still have pods. I'm on the Kings cap sheet right now. You still have. I mean, Al Horford probably not. I mean, I guess he has a player option, so maybe you still would. Moody's still there. Like. That's probably a play-in team. So you're at least somewhat competitive.
Melton looks healthy again. Really good for what it's worth.
Melton looks. Yeah, no, I've liked the D'Anthony Melton minutes so far. Returning. So it's a play-in team, which is cool, but you're not really building for something. In this final year or two of the Steph Curry, Draymond Green stuff. Which again, I think may be the best option they have. To be clear. It's tough.
I think I would want to go into the summer with the expiring Jimmy deal and see if there is an option on the table for me to do that, to go get like a star, do what you're talking about here, try to contend. But if that didn't present itself, look like how much would those guys like just revolt if you move Jimmy for like, I wonder the reason that the Portland thing came up to me is like, I feel like you could sell Draymond and Steph on Drew, who they've played with Team USA, who's in their age bracket, and Jeremy Grant, who they know and is still like a 20 point per game scorer. And you are bringing back like assets because Portland is trying to, create money to renegotiate and extend Denny. I'm not saying they'd get like a crazy amount for it, but I think they'd get like something in return for it. Yeah, it's hard. They're in an incredibly tricky spot, Bryce. Like this is why whenever I saw the Mike Dunleavy press conference where he had just like the incredible bar of when there is a demand, there has to be demand in regard to the Jonathan Kuminga situation with like his trade request. I was like, yeah, so he's getting pressured from ownership who like wants, theoretically Jonathan Kuminga to like really succeed and thinks something differently of Jonathan Kuminga than seemingly what a lot of the organization does. He's got Steve Kerr who like doesn't want to play him. He's got Aaron Turner, his agent, coming at him all the time publicly and coming at Steve Kerr more than anybody publicly for not playing him. And then on top of it, now you have this Jimmy injury where it completely changes the calculus for you moving forward on how you handle your situation. And on top of that, like, people bring up like Mike Dunleavy, like he's the GM, like this is what he gets paid the big bucks for. Like Mike Dunleavy is smart first and foremost, but like if Joe Lacob doesn't want to trade Jonathan Kuminga, Mike Dunleavy can't just like send in the paperwork to the front office at the NBA and be like, we are filing this trade for Jonathan Kuminga. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not the way it works. And like, he was working for Bob Myers before that. Like, it's not like he had decision-making sway then when Bob was there. It's just like, I think Dunleavy's really caught between like a rock and a hard place on this entire situation now. And I will be very interested to see how he tries to handle his way out of this. I think where I'm at right now is if someone offers me something interesting, I probably wouldn't do the DeMar deal for Kuminga at this point. If someone offers me something interesting that could result in, next year being a more competitive situation, I would do that for Kuminga. If not, I guess I would have to keep him. But if I'm keeping him, I need to like be on the same page with Kerr that you're going to play this guy. If not, I probably just have to take what I can get. And then in the summer, I would probably be pretty aggressive on the Jimmy Butler expiring contract and see what I can get.
Yeah, my immediate thought right now is I think I'm with you. The whole Kerr part of it is huge. I shouldn't just assume that Kerr would play him now because that would be a poor assumption on my part. I think if I could get that assurance from him, I would probably keep Kuminga, play him, assuming that's probably not going to win us that many more games. So we're going to have an interesting draft pick, if nothing else. And then I can go into the offseason with his expiring deal now, a Jimmy Butler expiring deal, and that's 6 months from now. I have a pretty decent idea where Jimmy Butler's going to be at in his at free agency time. Like I know I'm going to know whether we're getting Jimmy first of the year, not at all. He's crushing it, is going to be back sooner. Like I'm going to have a decent idea at that point. I think I would push everything back to the offseason now if I could, unless, as you mentioned, somebody some sort of Kuminga deal just blows my socks off somehow. I definitely don't feel as much pressure to make that move now, though.
I think that's where I'm at too with this. Okay. I want to talk real quick about the Bucks, and I'm springing this on you a little bit. I apologize for that, but Eric Name asked Giannis about some things that are happening. And Giannis was quite loud last night about like a lack of connectivity on the team after they lost by 20 to Oklahoma City. Eric asked essentially about how in the last 6 games, I'll just read his tweet. The last 6 games have featured the 5 games this season in which Giannis has taken the fewest shots. Post game, I suggested that the Bucks would be better if they could get him more shots. So how does he think they could accomplish that? Giannis said, "I'm not the guy that will yell and cuss his teammates out and demand the ball. I've never done that in my career, but I feel like I've played with teammates that kind of understand the gravity that I can cause for our team and how I can create for my teammates or for myself and how I can help the team be more successful. But maybe for some reason, I don't understand. Maybe because we're young, maybe because we're not playing well, maybe because guys think it's their turn. They want to carry the team on their back and try to turn this around. But I really don't get it. I really don't. It's not like I'm trying to be aggressive. It's not like I'm not trying to be aggressive. I'm really trying to be aggressive. At the end of the day, I have coaches, people that talk to me. They told me there's this thing called the white swan and the black swan. Got to be the black swan and be more aggressive and demand the ball. Again, it's something I've never done in my whole career, so maybe I've got to do it more." What in the world is that, Bryce?
Listen,
that's some Doc Rivers-isms, if I've ever heard. Like, be the white swan, be the black swan instead of the white swan.
I honestly don't know what that means, and I don't pay attention to quotes as much as maybe even as what I should. I hear them on other podcasts I listen to, or if they show up on my tweet, my Twitter, whatever feed. He's also the guy that said, I don't know, maybe my wife will not love me tomorrow, or like whatever, like whenever the trade conversation was, he was like talking about his wife not liking him anymore or something. At this point, I kind of just tune it out with Giannis. We're not going to get an answer. I feel like he just talks us into a loop and then ends up giving us some analogy that doesn't always make sense. And I'm just like, no, none of this tracks for me.
The thing with Giannis is that I am somebody that actually takes Giannis at his word on everything he says. I think that the key with Giannis is that he just says what he's feeling in the moment all the time. People look at it as if it's this grand scale statement because superstars don't often talk, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Or like they don't talk as much as Giannis does, right? And they often, their statements are often taken as what they mean over the long term of what they're talking about, right? I think Giannis speaks about what he's feeling in the moment and like basically solely in the moment. And that's just how his brain and how like he operates when he's answering those questions. So like in the modern like media apparatus that we have, I think like it's like almost not inclined to have somebody who speaks this like extemporaneously just off of the top of his head. I think where I'm at with Giannis is not that not that I think like he talks in circles or anything, not that like there's some grand plan or some grand conspiracy that he's trying to employ. And everyone's like, oh my God, like, Giannis just cut the cord, dude. Like, it's clear you want to get moved. I don't think that that's true, to be honest. Like, or at least I think that there might be times where that is true, but I think that there are times where that's not true. Right. And he feels great about like the situation and he genuinely loves Milwaukee. And like I think it's like a lot more complex and nuanced than what people want it to be, I guess is my point.
So I think that's probably fair. And that's where maybe again, like I maybe I don't understand Giannis, and I do appreciate whenever players are willing to speak and talk about how they feel and the situation and are kind of open. I maybe that's a better way of me saying it than feeling. I feel like I interpreted it like I feel like my head is spinning with some of his quotes. So like maybe he's not purposely talking in circles or giving me analogies that I don't always love or whatever. Maybe I just don't have a good enough feel for interpreting what he's trying to say, how he's trying to say it, all of those things. I've just gotten to the point, like maybe I just don't understand Giannis and how he goes about some of these answers. And then whenever I just read them off a tweet or off a paper or whatever, it doesn't really click with me. So, and that team, Sam, is just not very good. Like they are just not good right now.
Yeah, I mean, they're 18-25. They've lost 5 of their last 7. I mean, like watching the Oklahoma City game last night, it was so funny. Like in the first quarter, they couldn't, if it wasn't Giannis, like getting the ball on the block or driving from the top of the key or like playing in trailer and like getting in transition and things like that, they could not get into the paint against Oklahoma City. And like Oklahoma City is the best defense in the league and they have the best point of attack defenders in the league and everything like that. But like they couldn't get Oklahoma City into rotation at all, which is why like I'm wondering if John Morant ends up being an answer for them. I think that Memphis will want something. Like I think they would want Ryan Rollins.
And for what it's worth, I mean, Kevin Porter Jr., Doc said, won't play anytime soon with this oblique. So that's just another addition to that equation.
Yeah. Yeah. And, for what it's worth, like, the Ryan Rollins recent run has not been great. And I think that it dovetails with Kevin Porter being back for what it's worth. Because I think that those two don't have great synergy together for whatever reason on the court. But over his last 8 games, Ryan Rollins is averaging 10 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, shooting 34, 24, 75. It feels like the confidence and verve and like just everything that he had early in the season just isn't there. I will be really interested to see kind of how this goes now moving forward a little bit without Kevin Porter Jr. I know last night was without, Kevin Porter Jr. as well, but that's just like a totally different beast having to play Oklahoma City on some level. If there's any way he can be like a real lead guard, this would be the time to step up, I think, and answer those questions. Rollins. And he might just be more of a combo that's like an excellent two-way player and a guy that like winning teams would be ecstatic to have as like a fifth guy on their team. Right. And honestly, like, I think that's probably his more likely answer. You know what I mean? Like what this more likely ends up becoming. But yeah, I'm interested to see what happens with Ryan Rollins here, because this is a big little run for him moving forward in these next like 10 days or so.
For sure.
Okay, last thing I want to talk about. We're gonna talk a little bit about the draft stuff here, and we're gonna talk about Charles Bediako getting a temporary restraining order against the NCAA. So what happened here? He's going to be able to play for Alabama. So for folks that have no idea who Charles Bediako is, that are NBA fans, I completely get it. I don't know why you would know who he is, right? But what I'm going to tell you is that like everybody across the NBA and across college basketball, like their eyes are really on this case right now. So Charles Bediako was the starting center on like the Brandon Miller Alabama team that was really good and was the number 1 seed. And he was like a, awesome defensive stopper. And he decided to declare for the draft kind of nonsensically, to be honest with you, after the 2023 season. And now, 3 years after the fact, he is playing for your beloved Motor City Cruise, Bryce.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Has decided that he wants to play college basketball again. And has enrolled at Alabama, has been taking classes, I guess, and sued the NCAA for eligibility. And a judge in Alabama, for reasons beyond, I'll save my thoughts on this, decided to grant a 7-day temporary restraining order for Bediako to be able to play against Tennessee this weekend, basically. And Nate Oates is saying that he's going to play. Alabama needs a big, like Aiden Sherrill has been their starting center. I would imagine that Bediako is just going to come off the bench and give them some minutes here and there. I can't imagine that he's, going to be a massive part of the rotation from day one, even though he knows the scheme and knows everything that, Alabama wants to do.
Real quick, he played a game for the Motor City Cruise 5 days ago on January 17th.
Yeah. So he sued the NCAA for eligibility. NCAA says no. Judge grants temporary restraining order saying that the NCAA can't enforce its eligibility requirements on him, basically. That piece of it is now what's really important, because Bediako is the first guy that has actually gone through the draft process, stayed in the draft after playing college basketball.
That's the difference from Najee.
Correct. That's what makes this different from James Najee. James Najee was playing overseas. That's what makes this different than London Johnson. London Johnson was playing in the G League and never played college basketball. Bediako played college basketball, went past the early entry date, and decided then to try to sue to get eligible 3 years later in order to play this semester. This semester is the last one within his 5-year window, which the 5-year window is something that the NCAA actually has won in court to this point. So like if you're not within the 5-year window, you can't really do this. But the fact that he has gone past this date, the NCAA and like Charlie Baker, who is the president of the NCAA, has said like the NCAA has not and will not grant eligibility to any prospective or returning student athletes who have signed an NBA contract. Bediako signed 3 deals, 2 Exhibit 10s and 1 2-way contract. I don't know where to fall on that necessarily. the big thing that everyone is watching league wide right now, NBA, college, basketball ecosystem wide, really, is the fact that he went past the deadline, and this judge is basically saying that this deadline is kind of null and void.
Yeah.
So if in 7 days Bediako wins this, and the NCAA will then appeal, and this will become like a big fight, that's going to create massive repercussions down the road for how players deal with the draft, to the point where I think that the NBA is actually going to have to get involved and start making their own rules here on this. For now, there's been like a bit of like a detente where they're letting this play out and things are fine. If this was to get struck down in court, basically, where guys are able to like go back to school, there's no early entry, where the NCAA can enforce that you can no longer play if you go past a certain date, that would create an immense number of problems for people long term. And I kind of just want to walk you down this road. Like, basically, if this gets struck down, every freshman in college basketball that is not a real draft prospect that year should declare for the draft and get through the draft process and become a free agent. Because at that point, under current NCAA or under current NBA rules, all of them would become a free agent. Now, to speak to the point of this show, I think that there's some like game theory that would have to go on if you're a player like Benedict Mathurin, who would have definitely been drafted in 2022. Would that be? What year was the Ivy draft, Bryce?
2022.
So he definitely would have been drafted in 2021 then, is the answer. You're right.
2022, yeah.
Jaden Ivey definitely would have been drafted in 2021, even though he decided not to go to the NBA that year. So guys like that, like, they have to play a bit of a game theory kind of vibe where they have to figure out, okay, what is our best case scenario here? But the thing that I used in the column that I wrote today is Brandon Pajemski, right? Or imagine Jalen Williams is almost a better example of this. Both guys that went to Santa Clara, both guys whose teams had no chance to make the NCAA tournament by January 30th, let's call it. Neither guy would have been drafted after their freshman year. Neither guy would have even been close to the draft at that point. Pajemski, averaged 1.4 points per game at Illinois, and then transferred to Santa Clara and dropped 29-4 or whatever, and was an NBA draft prospect at that point. Jalen Williams, when he blew up as a sophomore, let's call it, very clearly was a high level NBA prospect at that point, was clearly a first round pick by the end of his season at Santa Clara. But as a freshman at Santa Clara, Jalen Williams averaged 7 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, and shot like 43, 35, 76 in the WCC. Would not have been drafted coming off of that year. Can you imagine a world where in March, even, let's call it, a team can draft, or a team can just sign Jalen Williams, who we knew at that point was like a first round pick at the very least, in the middle of their season, and basically eschew the draft? And there are people who believe this. Like, I know that David Aldridge, my colleague at The Athletic, American alumni, shout out American University, Bryce's alma mater. I know that there are people who think there shouldn't be a draft. I could give or take, honestly. Like, I do understand the case for that. And I don't, for people that believe that, like, that's fine. Like, morally, I don't really have a problem with that belief set. It's just very clear to me that the NBA wants a draft. And the NBA wants that for competitive balance reasons, for myriad reasons, it feels like. The NBA wants a draft for the eventized nature of it, being able to build hype for stars coming into the league, everything like that. Like, it seems very clear to me the NBA wants a draft to occur. This would blow that up in a real way if you could just sign guys like Donovan Mitchell, Damian Lillard after his senior season at Weber State, Brandon Pajemski after his sophomore season at Santa Clara, because they've already gone through the draft process. That's a whole problem that the NCAA or the NBA would have to solve that loophole. And you can do it by saying, like, if you go and play a game, if you enter the draft and then you go and play a game in college the next year, then you are automatically re-entered into the draft pool. Something like that. It'd have to be more official than that. I would have to think through it a little bit more. But what this Bediako case is doing is it's putting pressure on the NCAA, certainly in regard to their early entry date. It's putting a lot of pressure on the NBA because they would have to adjust their NBA draft rules on some level, at least, if this was to happen. Or they wouldn't, and then we just have pure chaos, and that seems interesting to me, at least too. That'd be kind of fun if we have pure chaos. It's changing the way that agents have to look at all of this that are representing players. And then it's also changing the way players have to look at things moving forward if this early entry rule, like, theoretically doesn't exist, right? So everything across the board here is like total madness. That is the difference between this Bediako case and like James Najee. Like, I know that Alabama fans are looking at it as, oh, well, this guy got to play and that guy got to play and everything. Look, like, do I think Bediako should be able to play? No, I think he made a bad choice entering the draft, and that was a choice of his own volition, and he knew the rules, and now he's trying to have his cake and eat it too, right? So do I think he should be able to play? I don't. Do I think there is a difference between what he did and James Najee? I do, because if you know anything about like just the basketball ecosystem worldwide versus here, like James Najee, when he entered the draft, probably did not think that college was a real option. And he certainly did not think that college was a real option in terms of getting paid. And anybody that's saying Charles Bediako, like the reason he left is because Alabama couldn't pay him at that point. The NIL system, wasn't as robust as what it was for international players because Bediako is Canadian. That's just like totally wrong. It just is. I'm sorry. Kentucky had figured out the previous summer how to get Oscar Tshiebwe paid across the board. Like it's just totally wrong. So that's what makes this case different, though. And that's why it's important. Like, beyond my belief system on like whether or not Bediako could play, and I don't think he should be able to, what makes this different is that it completely upends potentially the current system that exists within college basketball and will cause reactions from the NBA, from the NCAA, and frankly from like high school kids as well. Because if you have a bunch of kids that are just like going through to the NBA draft and trying to play summer league and all this stuff, it's going to make the offseason extend into July, and it's going to make it so much harder for these kids to find landing spots in regard to recruiting. So that's why this is messier than the Najee thing.
So let me throw something at you, and maybe you'll be able to shoot it down real fast. But like, shouldn't we just treat college like a professional league? The way,
sure.
Right. And so players go back and forth between European leagues and the NBL and all of that. Like, is that where we're headed?
I'm not opposed necessarily. If we just want to treat this as like a 5-year window and you try your chances at the NBA and you fail, and if you're still within the 5-year window, you go back. Like, if we want to make that the rule set, I guess I'm okay with it. I still think it's like off in regard to like what the purpose of college is and like developing is like humans and everything. I still think that's off, frankly. But if you want to make that the rule set, I will understand the rule set. I don't have an issue if, like, I think that where this should go is we should collectively bargain with these athletes and like break off from, honestly, we should probably like break off from the NCAA itself and everything and like collectively bargain and make it, just a full scale business at this point. But, the NCAA wants an antitrust exemption instead and wants to figure it out that way. So like, I feel there are just a lot of different feelings I guess I would have about it. But the feeling I do have on the Bediako thing is like, this guy of his own volition knew what the rule was at the time, decided to go through the draft, or like maybe his representation should have known what the rule was, and I'm sure they did. Decided to go through the draft, and now he's trying to come back when he knew that he lost his eligibility by doing that. That doesn't really fly for me.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, I'm a little bit more of a purist. Like I love that these kids are making money. Like I think it's great. And I've kind of given my spiel about like I don't think people should be surprised that this is where you're at. Whenever everybody, I don't know what people thought was going to happen when you opened the door with the transfer portal and NIL, but if you didn't think it was going to get this crazy, I don't know if you knew it was going to be this specific, but I don't know what you thought was going to happen if you didn't think it was going to potentially cause some unintended consequences. I think, and I don't know the legality of stuff enough. I think there just needs, somebody has to grab the reins of it. And I saw a video today. I don't even want to say who it was because I don't want to say it was this school's AD or that school's AD and then be completely off. But, or maybe it was a tweet. But college basketball just they need to form their rules, their collective bargaining, their whatever the legal system is, in conjunction with the NBA, potentially other overseas, with high schools, all of that, and just figure out the rules. Because right now it's insane. I've talked to enough people to know, like, everybody's just trying to grasp at straws on, okay, can I put this in? Can I put that in? Can we do this? Can we do that? What are they doing? Do we need to do it this way? Like, okay, this is how contracts are going to be structured for the NIL, rev share, etc. This is how the draft policy is going to work in terms of, okay, if you go, but you're unhappy, well, then this is where you can do it. If you're a first round pick, you don't get to come back. If you're second rounder later, maybe collectively bargain all of it, like all of the decisions. And I think it would be better. Now, there's a lot of really tough decisions and a lot of really tough negotiations. And I'm not even close to being smart enough to be involved in all of it. I think I am smart enough to know they need something like that, or stuff like this is going to continue to happen and it's going to get worse. And I do, the system is going to fall through at some point. And I think they got to get a handle on it. And I'm not saying take the money away. I'm not saying take the freedom away. I'm saying put legitimate things in place so that way there is no bending the rules or skirting around this rule or that rule, because they're not even there to go through right now, I feel like. So I think that's what needs to happen. I'm not smart enough to know how you get to that point, but I feel like they need to start getting there.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, look, like, I think that what the NCAA is doing right now is like praying for antitrust exemption. Like, we're putting our hands above our heads or like under, our legs and saying like, we can't do anything. We need an antitrust exemption. Look at the madness happening around us. Like, we need this. And like the house is burning down while they're the dog in the corner saying, this is fine. This is fine. And on some level, somebody's going to have to take some action. And, maybe it's more aggressive lobbying for the antitrust exemption and spending more money on trying to get that done via Congress. Or maybe we have to collectively bargain. Like, that's the reality.
Is there a possibility that it's like the commissioners of the major conferences? Like, sometimes I struggle with like, who does the responsibility fall on? And like, I point to the NCAA, but like, I don't even know what the NCAA,
well, the commissioners of the to your point, the commissioners of the conferences could band together and be like, yeah, we're leaving the NCAA and we're going to collectively bargain with our players and figure it out that way.
So that was my thought. Is that a possibility? Is that reasonable?
I don't know that that's on the table realistically right now.
Okay.
But like, is that a possibility? I would need to know like the contracts of all of these things in a way that I just don't, right? Like there was probably a point where I was covering college basketball 7 years ago or wherever where I might have, but like, I just don't know that at this point.
And And the thing the tweet said that I agreed with is the sports need different ones because, again, like obviously we do basketball, but I think football is its own monster that would need something different because their draft rules are already different than college basketball's, than basketball's rules. And I think women's basketball would probably want different rules than men's basketball, and volleyball and softball would want different rules than whatever, like across the board. And again, this sounds like a whole lot of work and it stresses me out just saying it, but it just seems to me like that's what makes sense because I do think every sport, based on how much money we're talking about, based on roster size, based on the current draft structure of the professional sports, and even what professional sports means in those different sports, right? Like I don't know what this means for what does it mean for a swimmer? Like, are college swimmers, is this affecting them at all? Like, their professionalism is different than a college basketball player's, eventual professionalism. So every sport to me, I feel like would need something different because it means something different to them.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's logical. Like, there's a kid that played at the Australian Open here who won his first round match and is a player at Columbia right now. Okay. And he made $150,000 playing tennis. And because he is amateur status, he can't take that money right now. He actually can't, because he was playing in a professional event as an amateur. He can't take that money. That's the craziest.
Does it at least get put somewhere?
Thing.
Does it get put somewhere till he's? That's insane. I assume that stuff was all gone now. Like that's why I brought up the swimmer track stuff, because I assume now that college athletes are getting paid. That's great.
There's a lot of that stuff in golf as well, where so a kid that won the national championship in golf, Michael Assasso, so he had an exemption into the Masters, into I think another one, if memory serves, either the Open or the U.S. Open. Exemptions into both this year by winning the NCAA tournament. I think it would have been the U.S. Open, and because he wasn't going to be able to make money off of those things to maintain his amateur status, in order to play in those events as an amateur by virtue of his success in college, he just decided, I'm giving up those things. And I think this actually has more to do with those events than it does with the NCAA. But I'm giving up those events and I'm just going to sign with Live and going to make a bunch of money by doing it that way. And he could have signed with the PGA Tour and tried to make, try to win an event this year and automatically get eligible for the Masters and for the PGA and for the US Open. If he wanted to do it that way, he had multiple options on the table to be able to do it that way. He just decided not to. And it is genuinely crazy the way that the NCAA is still fighting that battle. But the Bediako thing is genuinely quite interesting now moving forward, because this case will require a response from the NBA in some respect. The James Najee thing didn't really. The London Johnson thing didn't really. If Dink Pate wants to do it,
another one we should
that's not going to require a response. This does, I think, actually, and that's what makes it interesting for our show, I think.
For sure.
Okay, Bryce, that's all I've got. Tell the people about your work. Tell the people what's going on.
Yeah, at Motor City Hoops on Twitter, on Blue Sky, Motor City Hoops Substack. If your favorite team plays the Pistons, I have notes and analysis on them as well. Just, notes on the game as a whole and specific names on, your favorite team and the players that played in that game. Obviously, the Game Theory Substack, where we got the NBA draft show going up over there. Looked like the first one was pretty successful. And so that was exciting to see. And then, of course, Game Theory Podcast right here with Sam Vecenie.
Yep. Go to The Athletic. Keep me employed. I wrote that column on Bediako. I also have an updated NBA trade deadline big board that you can read about. I wrote about 53 guys. So there are so many words up there. There are 10,000 words up there in that thing, I would bet. So go subscribe to The Athletic. You will get all of my written work there. Go to the Substack, Game Theory, samv.substack.com. Again, the NBA draft show is over there now. that is the place where you will get that on top of a bunch of player breakdowns and everything. All of the good stuff that comes over there. We will be back on Monday morning, Sunday night, something like that, with another show. So until next time, we'll talk soon. Bye.